Hello, I'm Steve Gillmor, and this is the Gillmor Gang. We are coming to you from the usual place, which is chaos and unintelligibility. I can barely get that word out, which is that's what it is. Okay, so joining us from Half Moon Bay is the uncopyable Robert Scoble.
And my Angry Birds crackers.
And what do? Do they fire off in your stomach?
I guess so.
Make it angry.
Or afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. That voice is John Toshek. Welcome, John.
I'm at Chaos Manor here. Oh, that was Jerry Pornell's thing.
Right.
I'm at Salesforce.com.
Okay. Also joining us is Kevin Marks. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi there. Nice to see you again.
And from the other British Isles, the ones where...
I think the same British Isles.
I don't know. My stupid jokes about the British are boring even me at this point. So, welcome, Keith Tier.
Thank you. I can help you. I'm from Yorkshire, and Kevin will tell you that Yorkshire and the British Isles are not the same thing.
Really?
You come from the land of pudding.
Exactly.
All right, so let's get this started because this is going to be an abbreviated show. We have to wrap this around an hour from now or even earlier. So, Robert Scoble, what is floating your boat? I haven't seen any technology information except what Toshek's been tweeting for the last hour.
Well, an hour after last week's show, the Samsung Apple lawsuit settled or got announced, and Apple won on all accounts, and that's sort of taken over a lot of conversations in the hallways and over pub drinks, even last night. But I don't know that that's Gillmor Gang, because we like to talk about what's coming next week, not what's coming.
Well, I mean,
a week ago.
I mean, wasn't there a Japan legal action that went pretty much the other way?
Yeah, that was yesterday, and I think this will be rattling around for a while. I mean, the next stage in the U.S. suit is December 8th. So let's talk about next week. I think next week is Amazon week. I'm going down to Santa Monica to see the new Amazon Kindle Fires and tablets and stuff like that. Last night I was hanging out with Qualcomm folks. Qualcomm makes the chipsets inside the Samsung phones and tablets, and I saw some Windows 8 RT tablets that were really interesting that Samsung just announced yesterday. So there was a whole, and Samsung wasn't the only one. HP, Dell, Asus, and a few others announced new Windows 8 machines, and also convertible tablets that look like laptops if you dock them, and then when you pull it out, it looks like an iPad. Anyways, and then TechCrunch Disrupt is the week after that, and then Apple is supposedly going to announce something on the 12th, so it's going to be an interesting month.
Keith here, what do you think?
I think that Samsung thing is huge. The Japan one's totally different. It's to do with syncing between a phone and iTunes on a desktop music, so it was a much different patent suit in Japan that Apple lost, and there was prior art and so on. But the American one, which was more to do with design patents surrounding features of an iPhone or an iPad, that seems like a huge deal, and it seems to have prompted Larry Page to engage with Apple and start talking. And Apple's seems to have always said it's prepared to license the patents for reasonable payments. And my guess is that's what phase we're moving into now, so that there'll be relative freedom to innovate based on some kind of financial agreement between Google and Apple.
So you think that this is Larry Page's involvement in trying to restart patent conversations has something to do with a lawsuit?
I do. I think it's going to be very difficult for Android's partners to avoid Apple, or for Android itself to evolve the UI of its operating system to be more user-friendly, unless it is friends with Apple. I think that's what that means, and I think the writing's on the wall there now, and it's very likely that some kind of agreements will come out at the end of it.
Well, I've been using this Nexus 7 quite a bit in recent weeks, which is the first time that I've really been using Android to any extent, and I'm not so sure that they are particularly vulnerable.
Well, there is one very irritating feature of Android, which you may or may not have come across, but the fact that it's built almost like a deck of cards, and as you go through apps, you then have to use the back arrow, which isn't really a back arrow, like a go back to where I was multiple times to get back to a previous place, and you can't just jump from page to page. That design decision may have been motivated by a desire to avoid the iOS design, but it's really awkward from a user point of view.
Yeah, you seem to have I may have to call you back at some point because your bandwidth seems to be a little constrained. But we'll live with it for now. Sorry, Kevin?
Sorry, I'm not sure I follow that, because the back arrow is a alternative navigation mechanism, but you've still got menus and links and URLs and things to move around the screen. So
Is there a way in Android to do this, to switch from app to app using multi-finger gestures?
I'm not sure there's a multi-finger gesture. Yeah, let's try.
No, there's not. I think Keith's point is well taken. On the other hand,
there's that to give you, to jump between them that way.
Yeah,
yeah, but you have to
that's
hit a
like
button,
3
and you
strokes.
have to-
Yeah.
yeah,
It's one stroke. It's 2 strokes, 1 and 2.
yeah, but it's not like
It's
As opposed to, so unless you're
It's not a
acting
big
next
deal.
door.
It's not non-intuitive. It's pretty easy to do.
yeah,
It's
it
easy to
sucks
do.
basically.
It doesn't suck.
Yeah, it
It's just
sucks.
like-
Come on. I mean, it's one of the things that I don't like about the Nexus tablet, which I like pretty much everything about. other
Yeah,
than
I
that-
did my research in the last week because I couldn't think of a good argument against Nexus, and this is the one I stumbled on because I knew
Well,
I
it's a good one.
There,
But
there's
it's-
the main argument in my life is the ecosystem. I have AirPlay devices everywhere now at Rackspace. I have Apple TVs in the conference rooms. Here I have Apple TVs, and at work on our new TriCaster that we bought for our new studio. TriCaster takes AirPlay, so I can AirPlay right to my video streaming system, which I can't do on the Nexus.
But TriCaster.
All right, Keith, I'm gonna call you back because you're definitely problematic in terms of your bandwidth. So let's just think about bunnies and other things for just a second.
Bunnies.
Bunnies. I'll get you a teddy bear. Or a poodle.
Okay, Keith. Not having a real good time with your signal.
Okay.
Oh, that's better at least. It's
Okay.
It's not breaking up with audio. What were you trying to say just then?
I was saying the TriCaster's AirPlay implementation is very poor. Because of AirPlay, which is encrypted most of the time, it can only actually take certain types of AirPlay as input. It can't take everything.
It worked with the iPad mirroring. That's pretty much all I cared about.
Yeah, you couldn't do a Skype. You couldn't use. I couldn't call in to Steve using my iPad and have it go into the TriCaster. It doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we've identified two of the very few problems that you have when you're in the Nexus 7 environment. So one of the things that you have on the Nexus 7 environment that I've been exploring a lot is the ability to run Chrome on both iOS devices and the desktop, obviously, and the Nexus 7. Which gives you the ability to be able to load pages in Chrome and then be able to sync. They automatically sync over, so you can move from device to device. Bruce Francis just posted on Cloudblog a post about how devices are now being used, and he divides them into two categories. One is sequential, and the other is simultaneous. And it's something like, John, what was the data there in terms of sequential use?
I don't recall the data.
I think it was like a large percentage of people now use multiple devices, and they use them in one of two form factors, either sequentially, one to the next. You know, they get in the car, they're using the phone. They get out of the car, they're using a tablet.
It's 90%.
Yeah, and so that's one, pattern that has emerged that I'm enjoying with these different devices. Basically, you read something, you're in one context on one device. The context switches, and all those documents are still there. And so it feels like sort of a Minority Report future where everything shifts around to deliver your environment to you.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments?
I think that's the dream. Windows 8 is done that way as well. And when you install Windows 8 for the first time, when you log on with your Microsoft credentials, it pulls together everything it knows about you and provisions the desktop to be you. I think that is the direction it's going in, and that probably means that operating systems are already commodities, probably hardware to be a commodity, and you're going to choose hardware based on price and features rather than the software experience. I still do think Apple's software experience is vastly superior to Android's and Windows 8 for that matter, which seems to be a hybrid between a desktop and a mobile world. They probably have some ways to go to mobile, but they're on the way. So I think Apple wins probably just because of ease of use, software brand. But Android almost certainly wins volume-wise, but it's free. There's going to be more features. But
John Toshek?
Yeah, I mean, ease of use is there's the immediate learnability of something that a lot of people call usability, and I would say Apple's hands down more easily. You can pick it up and start using it, and that gets mass adoption very quickly. There's a deeper usability too, and that is something that is harder to patent because it depends on flows. It also depends on kind of design, and Apple's very good there. But that ball game is still up in the air. So you're after you learn something. For example, we were talking about the era from VisiCalc going to 123, and how people, once they became familiar with the slash paradigm in Lotus 123, were masters. They thought it was the most usable thing, and then when it went to a graphical system, Lotus didn't immediately support the slashes, and it was very difficult for them. So I mean, there's a usability, a learning curve there. Even though anyone who would pick up Lotus that was new would say, "Hey, it's much better. The experience is much better." Then they both get killed by something that had deeper flows into the usability and into the app functions, which was Excel.
Okay, I'm having fun with streaming. So continue the conversation.
There was one other thing I thought we should put on the table for today, and Steve, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but...
Well, just keep it in short bursts, Keith, because your audio is choppy. Go ahead.
So Facebook's revenue target was lowered by $1 billion by various analysts, and it hit $18 today. I think that, plus the continuing backlash against Twitter's changes vis-a-vis developers, kind of speak to what we can anticipate the mobile ecosystem being from a software point of view as we go forward. And it feels to me like there's a lot of change happening there, where it's being driven mainly by monetization, and Twitter's being driven also by monetization, but withdrawing from being a platform because of that leaves a lot of open space in mobile for others.
Yeah, I just was showing the Facebook stock price is at 1808, down 5%.
Cut.
Sorry.
well, Twitter announced a new ad targeting model yesterday as well, which is not just keyword targeting but also individual targeting. But it's not targeting directly follows that individual. It's going through some kind of fuzzer to give them a broader take. But the point is, they're basically saying we can target ads at keywords or at individual followers of a set of accounts. So if you follow that set of accounts, you can you can target people who follow those or people like them. And that seems an interesting approach and something that is different from the demographic targeting stuff that Facebook has been selling people.
Well, I think Facebook has just announced something. I don't know if it was today. I read it today, so it could have been weeks ago. But they're targeting ads based on users' phone numbers. And so they're further getting into the profile. I'd say this goes over... Scope, what's the freaky line, right?
Yeah.
Is that the word you use? It's it could get into the freaky line, but again, it's just giving you a profile, so it's giving you more of a location-based, some more data about the person, and targeting ads based on that. That's a different model, actually, or an enhancement to their same model.
It's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of new stuff on context. In fact, at the Qualcomm thing last night, I saw a couple new companies that are cooking, and they are an example of Android first companies, because Android is far more open to studying the Wi-Fi radio, the dialer, and other things that Apple just doesn't let you have access to. And this is, I think, a shift where we're going to start seeing bleeding edge apps on Android first and then move over to the iPhone. And they might not work as well on the iPhone as they do on Android. Plus, you have Google Now, which is already shipping from Google, and you have the Google Glasses coming out sometime in the next 14 months. This could be where Google really takes off and Apple really stumbles. And I'm hearing signs from inside Apple that they're going to open up their APIs to head off this new threat. But if they wait too long, they're going to get buried by a bunch of these apps that are going to get really good on Android, and they're not going to be very good on iOS.
Yeah, Google. I'll concede Google is way better than Apple. Where in building, just we had a need to be able to send DSS from our app, and Google, you can send an DSS without loading the controls in the foreground, so you can control the UI and send us. In Apple's implementation, they restrict how to load the SMS. The user level of
Keith, I can barely even understand.
Yeah, I can't understand you, Keith. So, like I said, short bursts until we get a better signal from you.
Okay.
If Kevin can't understand Keith, then there's a super problem here.
There's trouble at mill, yeah.
I just thought he was dropping the consonants like every other English guy.
By the way, is the stream back up or is it down?
We're working on it.
Okay.
But this will be on the on TechCrunch tomorrow. So can you please continue?
I will do that. It's interesting going to the Qualcomm thing, because you can see the chipset, how the chipset guys are thinking, and what they're putting into the systems. It'll be really interesting to see if Apple heads off this contextual thing. Google is, by the way, way ahead because they have much better mapping data. In fact, just yesterday on Google Maps, it added in that it knew where my house and my work was. And let me see if I can pull that up on my screen. This is the sign, a step-by-step approach to Google understanding more about your life. And the Google Now and that Nexus 7 tablet or the latest OS is a real example of where they're going to just keep layering on more and more understanding of who you are, what you're doing, what your intent is, and they're going to try to get the search to predict where you're going to be, and i.e. they're going to bring things to your glasses or to your screen before you even search for them. And that'll be exciting, but how many months away is it going to be really something that everybody can praise? Right now, the contextual apps that I've seen are like nice science projects, but they're not useful for even for me, and that means they're not going to go mainstream anytime soon.
Well, I mean, the mapping stuff they've got is a long way ahead. They just added turn-by-turn cycling directions this week as well, which is something that I find really useful, because before you'd have to sit there and look at the map while you were cycling. Now you can just put headphones on; it'll tell you when to turn. So that's that's an example of something where they've iterating on the different layers of the map. They haven't just got the car driving layer and the sort of the plane layers. They're adding specialist one for cyclists, and they can certainly add more to that. And they're also trying to make more sense, as you said, trying to make more sense of where you are and how they can help you. And I think that's part of their thinking, is that, and it's something they've articulated in public quite a lot, which is they want to make they want to suggest things to you before you even think of searching for them, and rely on the stuff there. And there's a sort of awkwardness about the how much you make sense of context there. There was a good article in Slate by Farhad Manjoo about how targeted advertising is just enough targeting to be creepy, but not enough targeting to be useful. And the way you find that weird ads follow you around the net wherever you go. As soon as you search for something, then you will see that same ad 16 times in a row on different sites. And this is a tricky thing to get right. This understanding context and making sense of it. But I think Google have a lot of quality data there that they're drawing from the Android pool, and I don't think it's something that Apple's making available to the same extent on the iOS platform for anyone else who wants to build it, or even building it themselves.
Yeah, the thing I'm putting on the screen is the new Lyft app that Biz and Evan Williams developed, where you put in what you habits that you want to form. Like I need to go exercising more. Or I need to eat more salad.
I think.
But this is yet another precursor of this contextual age that's coming. These things are I'm telling it what I need to do, and therefore it can help me do those things in the future. And this brings into the new quantified self movement, where we're studying more things. I have a Fitbit and I have a Fitbit scale, and over time it's collecting data about who I am and what I'm doing, and how well I'm achieving these goals. This is starting to get the databases going that will bring in this new age.
I think the problem, I'm not sure about my stream, but I'm going to monologue anyway. I think the problem is that historically, it's been very easy to get data into a system. Get it into a database, get it into some kind of system of record, and it stays there with no context around it, And the problem has been that all these solutions, from DSS type systems in the late 80s, ESS systems in the 80s, to DSS systems, to analytics tools, have never actually provided the real value around a person or habits like these. And this isn't going to do it either, because data is way too fuzzy, and the data is also not properly formed. It's too random. So to put context there, you actually need a trial and error mechanism in order to figure it out. Which may be what Robert was talking about with Android, and Kevin was talking about too, about the measurement of what people are doing in the system itself. But I still think it's pretty far away, and a lot of it's pie in the sky. Doesn't mean it's not a good goal to reach for, though.
I want to just test out Keith. Can you talk, Keith?
Yeah, so...
all right, that's much better. Thank you. Go ahead.
I was saying before I couldn't speak anymore, and it's taken us back a little bit in the conversation, but just in case this is still interesting. As a developer, I'm totally restricted by Apple in ways I'm not by Android, and I love Apple, but the one thing they don't do is they don't give me access to things that I can get access to on Android. Not just the sensor information that Robert was talking about, that's a big thing, but even simple things like, if I want to build an app that can send an SMS to my friends in the background or an email, I can't do that. I'm forced to load the actual SMS control and interrupt my UI, or I'm forced to load the email control and interrupt my UI. I think they're doing that to prevent spam, but it really means that you're very restricted what kind of apps you can build.
Yeah, I saw an app last night called Mighty Text, which syncs up your Android and your computer so that you can send texts to people through your mobile phone, but from your computer. And
I've been using that for months. It's really nice. It's a Chrome app too, so as a Chrome fan here, it's very nice to click that button and send a text, so I don't have to go through the handset.
And I talked to the
it's kind of
CEO.
archaic and weird, but it works very well.
Yeah, I talked to the CEO last night, and he said he just can't do what he wants to do on iOS. He's going to take it way beyond just SMSs, by the way. He showed me some new features coming that are pretty mind-blowing, and get into this AirPlay level integration with between your handset and your laptop or desktop computer. And that's, this is an example. I'm starting to see apps that are bleeding edge apps that are bringing really cool stuff that are Android first. This has gotta be troubling Apple. If Apple is not awake to this, they're gonna find themselves in 15 months just losing a lot of us early adopter influencer types, which means the profitability is going to go to hell, because they will make lots of money by tapping out China and India, but the main bulk of their profits are made on people like us, influencers, early adopters. We're the ones who will pay extra for a better device. And if Apple loses that betterness, and it's in threat of that, seeing Gillmor go nuts over this Nexus, they're in threat of this. And if they lose this over the next 12 months, that's going to be a story, I believe.
Who loses what?
If they lose
who's they?
Apple. Apple's
not going to lose anything.
No, he means
Apple,
if they lose developers. If they lose developers.
Yeah.
Developers and influencers. When I go to a tech conference and I ask people, who has Android, who has iPhone, it's 80% iPhone right now. At a tech passionate conference like a Le Web in Paris or a Lift in Sweden, or the Wear 2.0 conference was 80%, right, in San Francisco. If they lose those audiences to Android,
why would they lose those audiences to Android?
Because Android is becoming better. There's stuff coming on Android that's better than on iOS. This has not been true. In the past 2 years, 3 years, Apple has had the coolest bleeding edge apps.
I disagree with you. I think that there's, to say that I'm nuts about the this form factor is because I am. It doesn't mean that I'm not nuts about the iPad, and I can't wait for the new iPhone either.
Not right now, but if Android continues shipping things and giving developers access to things that Apple does not, you're going to see apps on the iPad and on the phone that are going to go beyond what you
I understand.
On your iPhone.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think that it follows that because Android has a substantial platform, that means that Apple won't, first of all, catch up or even lap them in other areas where they're deficient right now. Just because they have problems with their ecosystem. I mean, look at it the other way around. Android has tremendous problems with its ecosystem because it doesn't have the kind of scale that iOS has. It doesn't have,
Well, and it's fragmented. How many people have the new Jelly Bean OS or the latest OS on their devices? Only people who have the latest, Nexus 7s or the Nexus phone or the S3 phone. I don't even think the S3 phone has the latest yet. They're getting it soon. But at Apple, when they ship something and it goes to every device, instantly, and we upgrade everything. Google is way fragmented. It's different on every device. And I
think that this stuff is just as good. What Nexus 7 does for the whole community is enormous, including Apple. I don't think it's a zero-sum game in any way.
No, but I think that's right. But at the same time, there are some specific points that are being made here. And if we separate them out, I think it makes a lot of sense. Robert's making a very specific point that Apple needs to open up for developers access to elements of the iPhone that currently are closed to developers. And if it does that, it'll see a whole a new a new wave of apps that will impress everybody and make them want to buy the phone. I think that's true, and as a developer myself, I can tell you that even though we are doing iPhone first, there are a lot of constraints that we're having to deal with. Now, Steve, you're right, because we are absolutely doing iPhone first, and that's because the early adopter community around the iPhone is a must-go-to audience for any developer who wants to become big fast.
The companies that don't shift to a model where Android, and particularly the Nexus 7 form factor, are given sufficient resources, are making a huge mistake. That's what I'm saying. And I think that dovetails with what Robert and you and everybody but Kevin, who's muted, says. So, Kevin, what do you think?
I think one of the things I've seen from developer friends who have lived in the Apple ecosystem is that they're not aware of the stuff that Android can do that is available for them because they're used to the Apple world. And we've seen that with some of the apps that come across, where they end up building something. You go, why are you doing it that way? So I certainly got that with the Instagram and Path apps when they came out originally. They ignored a lot of the native affordances that are there, and they still don't quite work very well.
What does affordance mean?
They don't claim all the links from all the Instagram links and take them into their own app yet.
What does affordance mean?
There's sort of sense of routing of information between applications that is core to the Android experience that is very alien to the iOS experience, and that's something that is going to stay a bit confusing if we're not careful, because you end up with iOS, you end up every app having a browser embedded in it so they can show stuff. And with Android, you have the presumption that if you click on a URL, it might not take you to a browser. It may take you to another app because you can move stuff between applications. So if I click a link in Twitter that's Instagram, it will go to the Instagram app on Android. And you're able to build something that will make sense of all these different links rather than just having ones that are very, very siloed. And that in some ways, that makes it a more webby device. And that's something that is, it's quite subtle. It's not something you see straight away, but once you've got that, you realize that the device can work quite differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's different, and it is very nice in its own world, but just because it is web-friendly or link-friendly doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing. I mean, links are dead as of about 8 years ago, according to me. No, but what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that it's somebody said this just a little while ago about the back button. When links are alive, then you have to live and die by the back button. It sucks as an interface. It's a leftover of Adam Bosworth and Outlook Web Access creating whatever they call the thing that Google.
Supercard?
Well, yeah, something like that. I mean, the point is that there are advantages of both systems, and this does is to bring back the idea for me of the value of this system. It does. However, I spend most of my time trying to figure out how to normalize across these two platforms because that's the reality, and I think that's where the real gold is. The push notification stuff on the Gmail push notifications opens up in yet a third context of a browser. It's not the browser it's not Chrome, it's something else inside Google Plus or whatever the hell it is. There are so many different contexts for browsers that you get lost. You can't get the synergy of the sync mechanism in Chrome, for example, easily. I just Toshak sent me a link, which if you could post that in the chat room would be helpful, John, that talks about a workaround so that you can set up open in Chrome bookmark, which works quite nicely, so that if you get it because the operating system inside iOS is opening to Safari, you just go to that open in Chrome bookmark and bang, it's in Chrome, which is fantastic because it gets you into this cross-platform methodology. That, I think, is where this unification is going to occur, and the companies that can't see their way clear to enabling that are going to be the ones that are going to get hurt.
So, Steve, there's an interesting element to what you just said. When you think about iMessage, PhotoStream, and iCloud, they are great. What you sometimes call over-the-top messaging services that include media and cloud memory, but it's Apple specific, and your iCloud and your PhotoStream is not available on Android. There is no equivalent to iMessage yet that I have seen coming from Google. There are apps on Android that do similar things like WhatsApp, for example, but there's no Google answer to iMessage. And if there was, one wonders whether it would be cross-platform and work on iOS and make Google Drive available. But it's interesting that right now, at least, at the level of the cloud and the messaging systems, there is no cross-platform unless you go to an app that fills in the gap.
John Tushek, what do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the question actually.
The question is
the
Keith
underlying
right?
issue here?
Is Keith right that there's no analog to iMessage? I mean, I know for a fact that you're using Google Plus as a signaling mechanism. So I think that your answer would be no, that's not accurate.
To me, it's the only way to do this today, and it's not. I mean, technically, it's not any. It can be done on other places. It's just the only way that you can go to one device, have your website synchronized, your application synchronized. It's immediate. It's not like the Apple experience, and also take something and share it across a platform, which happens to be the Google Plus platform. The problem is you have to have a network effect for people to use it, and that's not there. And and so even though it works, from the Plus standpoint and sharing to the device, there's just no one on it.
Actually, what I would say, John, is I'd say you can make it work, but it wasn't designed for that. So as well as what you described, there's a lot of other stuff in Google Plus that really represents noise compared to what your use case is. And somebody needs to, and I'm a bit self-interested here because this is my area of focus, but somebody needs to create a messaging platform with cloud storage that's media rich, that is purely a messaging platform, not a networking platform in the way that Google Plus really is. And Apple has done it, but it isn't cross-platform. I mean, iMessage, PhotoStream, and iCloud taken together with the address book on the phone is kind of an interesting set of things that's still a little bit fragmented. And Google and Apple probably both have, and Facebook for that matter, with its Messenger app, which is very different to its main app, seem to all want to solve this problem. But I think Google Plus, you're quite right. You can make it work, but it isn't the perfect tool.
Okay, so let me pivot here.
What about Google Talk? Because that's the thing
it is the perfect
from
tool.
iOS from the beginning is actually an IM client. Google Talk is what I use for messaging between desktop and laptop and everything, and it was what I used on macOS when iChat supported it. And now that's gone away with iMessage instead, and we've lost that support.
It sucks on iOS. Gtalk sucks on iOS.
Fine.
There's no
native.
Yeah,
because Apple didn't ship an IM client, and I haven't tried Gtalk itself.
It's just a coincidence.
Hangouts is kind of getting there. Hangouts obviously is part of their play in this space, but it's been built for multi-party video calls with an audience and a presenter, so it too isn't quite the perfect tool. I think we can see what the tool needs. If we sat down and we said, okay, what is this product and what does it need to do? I bet there'd be 90% consensus between us what it was.
Well, I agree with that. Scoble, what do you think about the announcement this week of G Plus being integrated with Google Apps?
I thought that was interesting, and the problem is you need to have two separate accounts, one for your at home usage and one for your work usage, and they're not well integrated. And if they ever do get well integrated, they scare the hell out of me because it's so easy to, come home drunk and post to the wrong one.
Well, there's an easy fix for that.
Don't post when you're drunk.
No,
just post
don't drink.
everywhere.
Don't drink. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what happened.
Behavior mod.
I mean, this is why I use Salesforce Chatter, right? Because it's easy to know. Oh, Chatter is my coworkers, and Twitter, and Facebook, and Google Plus are the public, and so it's easy for me to, even when I'm inebriated, to come home and do the right thing, But if Google Plus lets me post to my coworkers in a little private area and then post to the public as well, it's tough to do that. And right now you have to actually switch the accounts, which, it doesn't let me do this multi-screen thing right now. I'm I'm intrigued though, because I told you last year that Google and Salesforce Chatter are going to be in a collision path eventually, and that seems to be another step toward colliding. What I found more interesting was than Google trying to get in on Salesforce Chatter or into the Yammer world is this new Facebook notifications API, where app developers have even better and more granular notifications that they can send out. This is yet another example of every major press announcement I've gone to lately. Apple, Google has really shown off innovation in notifications, and that gets me thinking, what's going to happen at Salesforce Dreamforce in a couple of weeks? Are you guys going to come out with a new kind of notification system for Salesforce Chatter?
Well, you're going to be doing a Gillmor Gang on Salesforce Live from the just after Mark Benioff's keynote.
Yep.
On, what is it, Tuesday or Wednesday, John? I think it's Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah. So you can tell us what the answer is then.
Yeah. Well, you guys are insiders, so I was trying to see if you were going to leak anything.
and that's the extent of your pre-brief.
All right. And we're also going to have a Gillmor Gang at TechCrunch Disrupt. So
that's correct.
That'll be interesting as well.
But the short story is that all of the major vendors are beginning, as you just said, to see that the notifications is the one platform of this mobile era that is going to have huge impact, and that the extent to which all of these vendors play on some sort of integrated model. I mean, either they do it or they become siloed.
Yep.
And it's already difficult enough, according to all the experts, of which you are some, to get revenue out of mobile. So if they start siloing themselves and cutting the percentage of the dollars that can flow through these systems precipitously, I think it's going to be disaster for those companies, which is why I think that Apple and Google are talking about patents, because it's not really about patents. It's whether they can play well together.
I think you overstate the notifications point, although I agree with it. I don't disagree with it. But I think you overstate it because it's mainly read. It's for reading. It's an integrated reading experience. It could get pretty overwhelming in the future if there's a lot of apps feeding into it.
Yeah, that's like saying that, they used to say that about collaboration back in 99 and 2000 and around Y2K. Well, there's not really any provable ROI on that. Well, that was proven to be incorrect. They said the same thing about the iPad, that it was, if you get rid of that flash thing, it's really gonna hurt the platform. Wrong. I can't think of anything that is more important. How do you get information?
No, I agree. Well, that's why I was
getting information, Keith. You push my button, and now you're going to get it. When you get information, that is the trigger for the actions that you take.
So I don't
Period.
disagree. I was very careful with what I said, and you put me into this. You did a bad thing there. You put me in a bucket with some stupid ideas.
Which
I'm
ones?
saying the Flash, both of them.
Oh,
They're both
well,
stupid. But so
feel the pain.
I don't disagree that the notification center on both Android and iPhone is very, very important. And if you're not there, you don't exist. I
the
agree with
early
that.
bird gets the worm. If
But-
there's
but I'm saying
if there's any system that is going to collect the earliest and most relevant and personalized information, it's going to be through notifications. It always will be through
No, I
notifications.
totally agree. I totally agree. But there's a blind spot in saying that, which is the publishing issue. So you can receive stuff and it will right there, and that's great. But responding to it and being part of a conversation immediately fragments you again, because when you click on a notification, you're going into the app that sent it to you. And now you're in a siloed world separate from all of the other notifications. And so I don't think it solves the whole problem.
Well, that's just the way that it works right now. But all those
it can send you to a link, and the link
Yeah,
can then go to a different app.
and
At least it can on Android.
And what happens? I mean, Scobles is pointing this out. Facebook is opening up developer access to the granularity of notifications. So can other people, like Apple, like Google, like even Microsoft can do this. And when they do that, they're going to start to get the benefits of them normalizing these signals across different, what you call silos and what I would call, context. That's going to happen. It's going to happen very quickly.
And I'm saying it's going to happen to publishing as well. There will inevitably be integrated publishing with multiple endpoints.
Yes.
Go ahead,
I was
Robbie.
talking with Mike. I was talking with Marcy McHugh over at Flipboard last night, and
Whatever happened to them?
oh, they're still around and they're doing some interesting stuff. Right now they're merging all of the publishing streams into one, and so then they can dedupe things, they can get rid of noise, and then they can do notifications. So they're going to be. You're going to choose which notification system does the best work for you, and you're going to plug that into, this little thing over here on the Apple, right? When you go, my mouse is dying. There we go. When you go over here and you see the notifications, that's Apple's notifications, and on Android you have your own notifications. But you're going to plug in things, and the ones that are going to win are the ones that have the best noise controls.
People are going to use software according to how effectively they use notifications. That's how this is going to get. This is going to get fought out at the application level, not at the enterprise, at the Uber OS level. There will never be an OS that does all these things. None of these companies want to do this, but they all have to do it to survive. So,
Now, what happens if Twitter shuts off Flipboard or any other system and says, "Hey, we're going to keep all that for ourselves"? Because watch how Twitter moves on my screen. This is not practical to watch on a mobile phone. It's only somewhat practical to watch on my screen. But I need as a system to go through and find the really good tweets. That's what Flipboard is. Flipboard is going through these tweets right now, looking for the ones that get retweeted, looking for the ones that have good links, looking for the ones that have lots of favorites, and they're studying a few other signals, and then they're pulling out just a few that get through the Flipboard system.
But isn't Twitter going to block them from doing that?
Well, that's the big question.
I think there isn't a question. I think Twitter is absolutely going to block them. I wonder what the new Dig is going to do when it doesn't get access to Twitter. I wonder what, all of these systems that rely on Twitter. Back to our point a couple of weeks ago, Twitter has just. I heard a company pitch today that had a tweet button, and the founder said to me, "We're going to replace that with a Foursquare button because Twitter won't allow us to do it anymore." Yep. So Twitter's going to disappear from places it previously existed.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not going to disappear because they have to make a constant calculation about the balance between openness and their so-called business model. If they can make enough money,
they're in danger of destroying it, their own credibility.
Well,
and
exactly.
A developer who's developing now Why
And
would
that-
they develop a Twitter app if
Yeah.
they can develop it on
Did
another
you-
bus that
did
that
you see
seems
that-
to be more open? They can take a bet on the future.
Well, I'll tell you why, John. There's no other data on any other bus. The only stream that moves that fast on my screen, and I'm on Facebook. I've spent hundreds of hours on my Facebook, on my Google Plus. The only one that moves that fast is Twitter.
Yeah,
they
but
have
after,
the data.
as they start cutting things off, then that data goes down.
As
No,
as
I-
these streams,
I-
mark my words, as these streams start to get auto-filtered in the way that you were talking about, that Flipboard is doing, as
Yeah.
Facebook does, as everybody is starting to do. As those streams become more finite, slower, and more targeted to the individual that's receiving them, they are going to start looking the same. So yes, you're absolutely right. But that's what's interesting about Google Plus right now is that they're starting to get more. If they can get a stupid +1 button on the Nexus 7, for example, if they can have the slider which enables notifications on circles, then they might even have a credible circle model.
By the way, I turned off those notifications. Let me show what Steve was just referring to.
Well, I
So
can't. I can't get to it until I can get to it on the Nexus 7. I don't care what it does on the.
Yeah.
on the-
Don't you guys
when you
think-
go to a circle on Google Plus, like my Tech Journalist circle, over here you can say also subscribe to notifications from new posts. That overwhelmed this notification, the red link, and it hid important stuff like direct messages and messages on my post that I need to see.
Yeah,
Google
because you
really-
have how many? What's the smallest circle that you have in terms of numbers?
I have some circles that only have 10 people in them.
And does it work with them?
Yeah, but I don't care about them.
That's
I
my
care-
point. So when that calculation is made,
They're just normal people.
Yeah, actually, you're absolutely right. The normal people I put in small circles, the ones that are really interesting circles
he's
for me
right.
are like,
I'm not right.
well,
Yeah,
the
that
tech-
guy.
Yeah, the Tech Journalist circle. I have 600 journalists in a circle, and it's really awesome. It's the best circle I have.
It's a shame John Borthwick isn't on today because I'd love to ask him how interesting it might be to him to open up the Bitly API to replace the Twitter one because the
That's a
one
very good question. As a matter of fact, John Tashek was tweeting, complaining about that very subject or something today. You were complaining about Bitly doing nothing with Google Plus, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's harder to use, and it doesn't support as many things as I want it to. So why not open it up?
Well, after he
it
was
could become its own information bus. It's like a little bit there, with if you look at the data that you can store. I would use it primarily if it just did a few more things.
Yeah, and I think that statistically, Bitly has enough information to be as accurate as Twitter in terms of what's trending and what isn't globally, I would say.
Even more accurate, I think, because they're measuring the not just the who is sharing, it's how many times that link is opened.
Well-
So a person can open a link multiple
Yeah.
times. That person could be very, very influential, in their community, and they're looking at that thing over and over again. That's important. That's a signal that's not always processed.
And
Yeah.
Bitly's not
they
the
have
only
that
one. by the way.
capability.
Bitly's not the only one. Flipboard has 20 million users now. They just announced that. And they have enough signal now to pick out the good articles out of a stream of stuff going by. And can they open up? Who's going to open up? But
Kevin, open your channel D, please.
the problem is if Twitter shuts down Flipboard and Bitly, does the system still work? With just Facebook data or just Google Plus data? I don't think so because the other systems just don't have this kind of flow that Twitter has.
No,
I don't think
but
Twitter
Twitter
can.
doesn't have the kind of flow that the push notification network needs. You just told us that.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, please weigh in.
I think
You have to unmute.
we're
Thank-
starting to see that we need more than one centralized bus for this, and people. If you actually look now, then developers are starting to say, okay, 2 years ago they would build on Twitter because that's what they wanted to build on, or they build on Facebook because that's what they wanted to build on. Now they're at least trying to do both of those and looking at what else is out there as well. This is where Google Plus not providing an API is a problem, because it's quite hard to get stuff out of it again. But but we're also starting to see people look at Instagram, Tumblr, at a bunch of these other tools that are publishing tools, and saying, can we extract information from that? We need to search across those as well. And so this moves us back to the can we actually standardize this stuff? Are there ways we can integrate stuff between different things? And that's why I'm still interested in the StatusNet stuff, the AppNet stuff, and the other people who are building stuff around the edges of this that could potentially bridge between them. Because the other thing that's happened is, because the big companies are actually explicitly blocking each other now, interoperation is not going to come from them. It can only come from third parties, and that may actually be a way out in the end. Or as Steve says, the integration may only come at the notification on the client, because there you can uniformize the UI. In the same way that BlackBerry did 5 years ago, of unifying the different kinds of notifications you get on your phone into one user experience. I think we maybe time for us to see another iteration of that experience, of everything being unified into a single field and being able to route back and forth at the edges.
But I think that's a pipe dream. Bridging. I mean, friend feed. Remember friend feed?
No.
Oh yeah, it's still working over here. But they got in trouble because they were trying to pipe in Twitter, and Twitter just shut them down. Wouldn't let them do it in real time. These guys are not going to play ball. They're just never going to play ball.
Flipboard actually did get tweets in real time, and it ruined the service. I want this. I want each service to have its own thing. I don't mind having them on my screens. I mean, I have Quora running, Google Plus, Friend Feed, Facebook, Salesforce Chatter, and Twitter all running at the same time. I don't mind that. And they all have their own different audiences and their own different distribution system, their own different media types. I don't want stuff to go from one to the next. But I do want to build a system that watches these and then pushes important stuff from all of them to my notification system.
Right now, that's possible. That's what I do with the push notification systems on both iOS and the Nexus 7.
Yeah,
I have to control it. If people are too noisy, they're gone. That is going to create the kinds of signals that we need, particularly when Google Plus, when Google allows Google Plus signals to be the same on both this platform and their desktop platform.
Yeah,
it's going to take a little while. Now, I hate to shut this down, but I want to go around the table very quickly, and because we got to get out of here in about 4 minutes. So, who wants to start?
I'll start, since I'm showing you this.
Okay, good.
Cover Stories is Flipboard's first attempt at watching signals from SoundCloud, from Instagram, from Facebook, from Twitter, and picking the good ones for you, personalized. This is an early look at a possible notification stream, and it's getting better every week.
Okay, Kevin Marsh.
In the notifications that are showing up on the edge devices, and being able to route those to not just the app that sent them, but to other apps will make more sense. And we may end up getting broker apps that sit in between and do that. The other thing is, the way you get access to this is to take over the posting clients as well as the receiving clients, and that's going to be more work. But we're going to see that happening again as well.
I agree with that, and I think that what's going to drive that is going to be one or the other of the major notification vendors is going to take the lead in the same way that Apple did by pulling AT&T in and basically getting the carriers in line. Somebody's going to have to make it an economic problem to not be somewhat more open, and I think that precisely the way you just suggested it. Keith?
I think we're sitting at a time when mobile messaging is being redefined. The read part of that is centered on notifications. I do think that the publishing tools, SMS, email, and then various either social networks or media sharing tools are all primitive compared to what we're going to end up with, and that neither Google nor Apple right now are there, although iMessage is ahead. And somebody can come into that space and make a big difference.
John Toshek.
I don't care that much about iMessage at this point, but I agree they're all primitive. One of the things that there's two in my world. There's that Kindle Chrome plug extension that sends things into a Kindle, and Amazon's coming around with this ad-supported Kindle now, which maybe it brings it down to $150 for a top-end one. I don't know, maybe it's $100. I have no idea how much it is, and that will have that Kindle capability of syncing all your data and context together, including what page you've been reading on. That's an important step. The other one is the from Chrome into Plus. So I use that also. I use that on the Nexus. These two things are both Android platforms are going to either inspire competition or inspire a new model, but they're going to get other companies and use the users to use this. They're going to change the behavior patterns of these mobile devices, which I think is the most important thing.
Okay, I want to thank Rackspace and particularly Rob Legess for making this show possible again after a period of desperate silence. I want to thank NewTek and the TriCaster. I want to thank Robert Scoble. I want to thank Kevin Marks. Get rid of those Angry Birds, Scoble. Come on. I want to thank Keith Tier. And I want to thank John Toshek.
Thank you,
This
Steve.
has been a great show.
And thanks, Tina.
In spite of all possible problems. And we'll work on your, upgrade your client, Kevin, please. You did? Okay, well, we'll have to figure that out. We'll try it on a different channel, see if that can make any difference. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.